Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Barakah Kodash, Barakatom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on the economiccollapseblog.com titled, "Even before the recession has officially begun, some large U.S. firms are laying off thousands of workers." And this is just going to be an update on the continuing foreclosure of the United States of America, biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. There is going to be no Make America Great Again. And besides filling it in your pockets and in your bank accounts, you can clearly see things aren't getting better. A statistical survey just came out saying that 59 to 62% of all U.S. workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Major corporations like JCPenney, Sears, Radio Shack, Victoria's Secret, and even Walmart, if you can believe it, are closing down locations and laying off thousands of workers. The student debt loan crisis is spiraling out of control. Even the diamond sellers are feeling the economic pinch because people aren't getting married anymore. It's too costly to do so. And with this trade war only getting worse, it's only going to exacerbate all these problems. And what it's all going to lead to is a state of martial law and lawlessness, where people are going to be fighting each other for whatever they can get. And then that's going to lead to the mandatory implementation of the mark of the beast, which is that microchip implant, as a means to try to rectify all the chaos out there. But we know that when that happens, that's when Yahushua is going to return to save his elect and put the final kibosh on Esau's rulership. Let's get into this article. If the U.S. economy is booming and very bright days are ahead, then why are many large U.S. corporations laying off thousands of workers? Layoffs are starting to come fast and furious now, and this is happening even though the coming recession has not even officially started yet. Of course, many are convinced that we are actually in a recession at this moment. In fact, according to John Williams of shadowstats.com, if the government was actually using honest numbers, they would show that we have been in a recession for quite some time. And when you actually look into the true unemployment numbers, about 102 million U.S. citizens are unemployed right now. That's a third of the country. But the narrative that the mainstream media keeps feeding us is that the U.S. economy is doing well and that the outlook for the future is positive. Well, if that is true, then why are big companies laying off so many workers right now? Let's start by talking about Ford Motor Company. On Monday, they announced that they will be laying off approximately 7,000 workers. Ford Motor said Monday that it is laying off about 7,000 managers and other salaried employees, about 10% of its white-collared workforce across the globe. So it's not just blue-collar workers anymore. It's moving up to the food chain to those more comfy jobs. As part of a restructuring plan designed to save the number 2 automaker $600 million annually, the cuts, some of which were previously announced by the company, will be completed by August, Ford CEO Jim Hackett said in an email to employees on Monday. If the U.S. economy was about to take off like a rocket, this move doesn't make any sense at all. But if we are headed into a recession, this move makes perfect sense. Another large firm that is laying off thousands of workers is Nestle. Nestle's SA's U.S. unit will dismiss about 4,000 workers as it stops delivering frozen pizza and ice cream directly to stores and transitions to a warehouse model that's become an industry standard for big food companies looking to trim costs. And we also recently learned that 3M is planning to get rid of about 2,000 workers. 3M plans to cut 2,000 globally as part of a restructuring due to a slower than expected 2019. The maker of Post-it notes, industrial coatings, and ceramics said Thursday that the move is expected to save about $225 million to $250 million a year. The St. Paul, Minnesota-based company anticipates a pre-tax charge of about $150 million, or 20 cents per share this year. Did you catch that part about these layoffs being due to a slower than expected 2019? Unfortunately, things are slow for a lot of companies out there these days. Another company that is dumping a large number of workers is MGM Resorts. MGM Resorts International, MGM 2.09% plans to cut about 1,000 positions by the end of the current quarter amid a cost-cutting and operational overhaul that calls for fewer managers, again managers, those white-collar jobs across its properties. That figure includes some 254 positions that the company moved to eliminate last week. And you've got this resort place laying off workers. That's because people can't afford to go on vacation anymore. It's all a vicious circle. In addition, Dress Barn just announced that all of their stores will be closing. Dress Barn is closing all of its stores. The women's retailer announced Monday plans to commence a wind down of its retail operations, including the eventual closure of its approximately 650 stores. I'm not sure how many employees they have per store, but even if it is just a handful, we're talking about the loss of thousands of jobs. The U.S. economy has been slowing down for months, and now the complete breakdown of trade talks with China threatens to plunge us into a prolonged trade war. As I noted in another article, a couple of different studies have concluded that an extended trade war could literally cost our economy millions of lost jobs. And once the job losses start rolling, they can really get out of hand very quickly. We saw this in 2008, and it's just a matter of time until we see it again. On Sunday, a reader sent me an article about a factory closing that was happening in her neck of the woods in Pennsylvania. One worker that was laid off said that the closure of the facility was the final kick in the gut. Robert and Brooks Gronland, owner of Wood Mode Incorporated, wrote a text to workers Friday saying they are extremely appreciative of the employees' contribution and commitments. The company owners then confirmed all of them were terminated, as were their benefits. God damn. It was the final kick in the gut, Michael Sanders, a 22-year-old employee of the company, said Saturday. The privately owned company in Creamer, which produced custom wood cabinets, shut its doors on Monday, leaving nearly 1,000 people without jobs. The abrupt closure of the plant stunned workers and community leaders. So now, almost 1,000 people do not have a way to support themselves and their families. We are talking about hardworking people with real hopes and real dreams. Creamer is a very small town. According to Wikipedia, only 773 people live within the city limits, and so obviously there are not a lot of employment opportunities in the town. And if those workers are anything like the rest of the U.S. population, most of them were probably living paycheck to paycheck, 59 to 62% of all U.S. workers. And a lot of these rural and small towns are really getting hit. That's why this opioid crisis and drug addiction crisis among these Edomites is spiraling out of control. These Edomites don't see any hope for the future. So as you can see, with each passing day, things just keep getting worse and worse for the good old U.S. of A. Now let's get into some precepts. This is Isaiah 19, verse 15 to 16. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which is speaking of the United States of America, which is spiritually Egypt when you go to Revelation 11 and 8, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. And what do we read? White-collar manager workers are starting to get laid off. The head as well as the tail, those blue-collar, lower status workers. In that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and feared because of the shaking of the hand of Yahweh of hosts, which he shaketh over it. When Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai really starts putting work to this country, when there's a full economic collapse in a state of martial law, when it's going to be dog eat dog out here. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12. I'm going to read verse 3 to 4. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and that's speaking of these economic forecasters out there that keep an eye on the economy and the stock markets and everything. They're really trembling out there. That's why when you go to YouTube, you see them posting all these videos speaking of doom and gloom and how a major recession is right around the corner. And also those keepers are referring to these elites. These elites also see that things aren't looking too good, and they also understand the scriptures and know that it's the Most High bringing this hell down upon their rulership. And they know that once they're taken out of power, then it's just 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery before their permanent eradication. And also these elites of these Edomites know that they're going to be the first fruits of the kingdom, because they're going to be saved from this coming nuclear destruction, only for the elect to go to their secret hiding places, dig them out, and slap chains on them. And the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. And grinders and grinding is referring to workers and work. And the doors shall be shut in the streets. All these corporations are laying off thousands of workers. When the sound of the grinding is low, the working is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. And where it says he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, that's referring to people waking up early to find jobs that aren't there anymore. And with all this job loss and chaos brewing, it's going to lead to a lot more people committing suicides and getting addicted to drugs and alcohol. This is Isaiah 24, verse 10 through 11. The city of confusion, and Babylon means confusion in Hebrew. Again, talking about the United States of America, that spiritual Egypt, is broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in. The grinding is low. There is a crying for wine in the streets, as well as opioids and heroin and whatever these Edomites can get their hands on. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone, because these people don't see an economic future. They only see doom and gloom. And again, as I said earlier, this is all going to culminate in a state of martial law, and then that eventual mandatory implementation of the Mark of the Beast microchip implant. I'm going to close it off with 2 Esdras 15. I'm going to start at verse 15. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another. Speaking of that race war, which is going to be exacerbated with this economic collapse, because people are going to become tribal and go for their own self-interest and the self-interest of their racial group, and swords in their hands. And that modern day sword is that gun. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And where it says they shall not regard their kings nor princes, that's talking about these political figures. When these people find out how much they've been screwed over by their politicians who had corporate interests in mind over the interests of their own people, they're going to start coming after you, politicians. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, a state of martial law, when all rioting breaks out in these cities and they're put on lockdown. It's just going to be a slaughter fest in these cities. So brothers, with this video, I hope you were edified, and just keep strong and keep holding on. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity. And as always, I'm going to say Abba Ball, Kwam Yasharala. Until next time, Shalom.